Be seated. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to jury service of the Hamilton County Common Pleas Court. My name is Judge Wendy Cross, and I will be presiding over this matter until its conclusion. I'd like to introduce my staff at this time. You've already met Ms. Howard. She is my bailiff. Ms. Finke is my staff attorney. Ms. Goldsmith is my court reporter. Can everyone hear me all right? All right, we'll try to keep my voice up. It is very important to everyone involved in this case that you're able to hear and see and understand everything presented here during these proceedings. If at any point you cannot hear us, please do not hesitate to raise your hand, say, or shout out if I don't see you. If I don't respond, just speak out and say, "Excuse me, I did not hear that." All right, because it's very important. Also, during the jury selection portion of the proceedings, counsel and I will ask you questions. You do not have a microphone, so please use your outside voice and speak up so that we can hear you, and so the court reporter, more importantly, can record what you're saying. Thank you very much for your presence here today. We recognize that each of you is making some sacrifice to be here today. It is the court's intention that your service as jurors or prospective jurors be a rewarding experience. Service as a juror is one of the most valuable civic duties you can perform. Trial by jury is one of the most valuable rights we possess. Your participation in this process contributes greatly to the fair and equitable administration of justice in this case. Now, you have been summoned as prospective jurors in this felony criminal case captioned State of Ohio versus Cottrell Lamont Amison. Now, an indictment informs a defendant that the state has charged him or her with one or more offenses. In fact, the case begins with an indictment. Mr. Amison is charged with improperly handling firearm in a motor vehicle and carrying a concealed weapon. Now, each count of the indictment asserts a separate charge. The indictment is not evidence that Mr. Amison committed any offense. Mr. Amison pled not guilty to the indictment. His not guilty plea means that he has denied the charges and requires the state of Ohio to prove each count beyond a reasonable doubt. Now, the law presumes that Mr. Amison is innocent unless and until the state proves the defendant's guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. So let me put this in perspective. As we sit here today, right now, I believe Mr. Amison is not guilty. And you should too, because you've heard no evidence. Jury service may be strange to you, so a short explanation is in order. Those who participate in a trial must do so in accordance with the established rules. This is true of the witnesses, of the lawyers, and of me the judge. It is equally true of you as jurors. The lawyers present the evidence according to the rules. The judge enforces the rules and determines what evidence may be admitted. You, collectively as jurors, will be the sole judges of the facts, the credibility of the witnesses, and the weight to be given to the testimony. You will receive the facts from the witness stand. Instructions as to the law will be given to you by me, and it is your duty to accept and apply the instructions that I give you. Now, the state of Ohio and Mr. Anderson are entitled to jurors who approach this case with open minds and who agree to keep their minds open until a verdict is reached. Jurors must be as free as humanly possible from bias, prejudice, or sympathy, and not be influenced by any preconceived ideas, either as to the facts or as to the law. Now, a trial starts with the selection of a jury. As prospective jurors, you will be questioned to determine your qualification in this case. And I think I want to remove this. Now, these questions are not designed to pry into your personal affairs, but to discover if you have any knowledge of this case or any preconceived opinion which you cannot set aside, or if you have had any experience in your personal or family life that might cause you to favor either party. These questions are necessary to assure each party a fair and impartial jury. You are undoubtedly qualified to serve as a juror in general. However, there may be something about this case that could disqualify you for this case. For example, maybe you know a witness. That might be an example that may disqualify you. Since this is an important part of the trial, you are required to be sworn in before questions are asked. At this time, I will ask you to stand and I will administer the oath. Mind raising your right hand? Do you solemnly swear or affirm that you will truly and fully answer all questions put to you by the court and counsel in this case, now called for trial, and this you do as you shall answer unto God and under the penalty of perjury?
Yes.
You may say, I do, or yes.
Yes.
Thank you. You may be seated. Now, just let me take a few moments to introduce the parties in this case. As I introduced you, will you please stand? We don't have any masks right now, and I need to ask you about that in a moment. But I'd like to introduce, for the state of Ohio, Miss Caitlin Mullet. And Ms. Mullet, who we have at the table with you.
All right, Officer Lynn Hyatt, Cincinnati Police Department.
All right. Good afternoon. Thank you. And for the defense, but first of all, attorney Ms. Erica Underwood.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon.
And at the table with you,
I apologize, Your Honor. This is Contrell Anderson, and I have the honor of representing him today.
thank you. Now, the question I have for you, do you know any of the parties? anyone here know any of the parties that were introduced? Does anyone know me? All right. Ladies and gentlemen, please listen closely to the questions, and if you're silent in response to the questions, it will indicate a negative answer. If, however, any one or more of you believe your answer to be other than no, please raise your hand to make the facts known to the court or to the attorney who asked the question. Now, I will begin by asking some general questions. If my question calls for a personal answer, which you would prefer not to discuss in open, but you want to discuss in private, just say so. And we can step into either a separate room, or we can find somewhere to be private so that you can disclose your answer in privacy. My questioning will be to all prospective jurors present in the courtroom, and not to just those seated in the jury box. When the attorneys ask the questions, they will be directed just to the persons seated in the jury box. But for purposes of right now, I'm going to ask questions to everyone in the room that is a prospective juror. Let's talk about COVID. Now, the court has followed the guidelines of the CDC. We have followed the guidelines set by the county health department, and we have relaxed our restrictions. But we also want people to feel comfortable. And as you may have noted, on the front of my door, it says that masks are optional, and they are. If you would prefer to have a mask, please feel free to do that. It is absolutely okay. My staff they have never taken off their masks, even when I do. They've never taken it off. And that's their comfort level. So really, I just want everyone to be comfortable, particularly the folks in the box. Now, I see that there's only one person with a mask, and that is absolutely fine. If there is any type of concern that you may have, and maybe you don't want to reveal it now, please feel free to talk to Ms. Howard or Ms. Spinky. All right? I've introduced you to the parties in the case, and everyone has indicated no one's personally acquainted with anyone. We anticipate this trial to take today and tomorrow. Hopefully, it will be done by the end of the day tomorrow. But that's the attorney's best guess, tomorrow. The court is responsible for some 600 cases. As such, there are a number of cases to which the court must address each day, in addition to this trial, which is why we're starting so late today. Therefore, the trial proceedings in this case are scheduled to begin at 10 a.m. I apologize up front for any delays that we may have. I anticipate that this matter will be continued till tomorrow, and we will start promptly at 10 a.m. tomorrow. There won't be as much waiting around like you did today. We will always recess for lunch, and in fact, this afternoon, we will probably take a 15-minute break just to give you time to stretch, if you need to use the restroom, or if you want to just have a drink of water, it's fine. In fact, I don't have an issue with you drinking water in the jury box, but only water. No coffee, tea, or soda. Now, once the jurors are selected, my bailiff, Ms. Howard, will check with you the end of the lunch breaks to see if you'd like to extend the times of the recess each day. Now, knowing that this case is going to be today and tomorrow, Do any of you have a scheduled conflict or personal obligations which would interfere with this work schedule? I take it by your silence, no. Does anyone believe service on this jury will cause a financial or personal hardship? I take it by your silence, no. Does anyone have any infirm or dependent family members who will require your attention, causing an unavoidable conflict with this trial schedule? Anyone? No? What about doctor's appointments? Does anyone have a doctor's appointment later today or tomorrow that you cannot reschedule? All right. Does anyone have any physical, emotional, or mental problems which would prevent you from serving as a juror in this case? And if there is something you'd like to talk about, again, in private, just raise your hand and we will give you privacy. Now, this case, I've already explained, is improper handling of a firearm in a motor vehicle and carrying a concealed weapon. Have any of you, to the best of your recollection, read or heard anything about this case? Do you? Okay. So I see you now. Is there anyone here that does not believe that he or she cannot be fair and impartial to both parties, the state and Cottrell Amison in this trial? Is there anyone here who does not believe that he or she can come to a judgment in this case for whatever reason, whether it be moral, religious, or philosophical reasons? Is there anyone here who can't sit in judgment of another human being? I take it by your silence now. Both parties want a decision. If the state proves beyond a reasonable doubt the defendant's guilt, can everyone here sign a guilty verdict? Can you do that?
Yes.
All right. Likewise, if the state fails to prove beyond a reasonable doubt the defendant's guilt, can everyone here sign a not guilty verdict? All right. Is there anyone here who cannot do that? So what does beyond a reasonable doubt mean? Reasonable doubt is present when, after you have carefully considered and compared all of the evidence, you cannot say you are firmly convinced of the truth of the charge. Reasonable doubt is a doubt based on reason and common sense. Reasonable doubt is not mere possible doubt, because everything relating to human affairs or depending on moral evidence is open to some possible or imaginary doubt. Proof beyond a reasonable doubt is proof of such character that an ordinary person would be willing to rely and act upon it in the most important of his or her affairs. Now, Cottrell Amison is presumed innocent unless and until the jury has determined that his guilt has been proved beyond a reasonable doubt. There is no necessity or requirement that Mr. Amison present any evidence. The duty of proof rests entirely on the state of Ohio. The defendant must be found not guilty unless the state produces evidence which convinces you beyond a reasonable doubt of every essential element of the crimes charged in the indictment. Is there anyone here unable to follow the law that the state of Ohio has the burden of proof? All right. You must decide this case based solely on the evidence produced at trial. And you must decide this case only after discussion with your fellow jurors and after fair and complete consideration of the views of all jurors. This is a careful and deliberate process. This is different from your normal decision-making process. Is there anyone here who cannot wait until discussion with your fellow jurors to decide this case? All right, I take it by your silence that that's not the case. The court expects each of you to participate in a group decision-making process of this sort. Is there anyone here who feels he or she cannot or will not participate in a group decision-making process of this sort? In arriving at your verdict, can each of you lay aside such matters as race, bias, religion, or sympathy? Can you set those things aside? All right, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen back there, can you do that? Thank you. Here. Thank you. None of these must have any effect on your deliberations in this case. Your verdict must be based solely upon the facts as testified to by the witnesses and exhibits that are admitted into evidence, and the law as given to you by the court. Is there anyone who cannot do this? This court will instruct you to do no research. So no Googling about the case, no looking at witnesses' Facebook pages or anything like that, no looking at maps. Is there any one of you that cannot base your decision and your verdict solely upon the facts as testified to by the witnesses and the exhibits that are admitted into evidence and the law given to you by the court? Is there anyone who cannot do that? Does anyone here feel that he or she cannot be fair and impartial to both sides, the state and Mr. Amison? Is there anyone here who feels that they cannot do that? All right. Ladies and gentlemen, we have your questionnaires that you filled out. So if we ask you about your job or something like that, and you wonder how we know that, it's because we've read your questionnaires. Do not be offended. Private questions can be answered at sidebar. All right, before I turn it over to counsel, let me just ask a little bit of housekeeping. I want to know about your parking. Is anyone in a situation where they cannot stay until 4 p.m. today? Because they park somewhere and they have to get their keys to the attendant. Yes, ma'am? Your number?
16.
15?
16.
16. Can you stand, ma'am? So I can't hear you. All right, so are you parked somewhere that you have to go and get your keys from an attendant?
No, I'm just parked there.
At a meter, okay. And how long are you there for your meter?
I put the app on my phone, so I have to pay it at $2.48.
Okay, so you can do it by your phone?
Yes.
All right, and so as we get close to that time, you may have to remind us, but I think we're gonna be here till just about 4 o'clock,
Okay.
okay? Thank you for letting me know. Anyone else? The reason why I ask this question is because what I don't want to happen is you be parked somewhere, you give your key to the attendant, and by the time you get finished, the attendant is gone, and you can't get your car. So that's why I asked that question. It's happened before, so. All right, ladies and gentlemen, if you have a cell phone, I'm gonna ask you to turn it off, because this is so important to the parties that we need your undivided attention. We will get a break. this afternoon for about 15 minutes, so you can check your phones in case you need to check in with family or anything like that. At this time, counsel for the parties is permitted to continue inquiry of the panel. Counsel for the state is permitted to make the first inquiry, followed by counsel for the defense. So at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Smollett, and she will ask you some questions. Ms. Smollett?
Thank you, Ron. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you again for your time in today's case. You're a vital role, a part of the justice system, and I cannot thank you enough for your time and service. As the judge mentioned, my name is Caitlin Mullet. Like the bad haircut, I always tell everybody. It's a married name, it's not my choice, but that's how they pronounce it. So anyways, that's just a good way to remember. I am an assistant prosecutor. I work for Joe Dieters. I'm sure people recognize the name. As it works, Joe Dieters employs over 200 people, so there's a bunch of us. And he's the main prosecutor, or was considered assistant prosecutors, because he can't handle all of the cases. So that's where we come in. I've been at this office for about 6 years now, and I've been in this certain division for about 8 months. But don't worry, I'm a pro by now. Juries is about my 6th one in the 8 months that I've been here. So that being said, that doesn't mean I don't get nervous and I won't slip up. And I'm just going to ask you some questions. I'm not trying to cry or get too personal. I'm just trying to see if this is the right jury for you. There's all kinds of cases that are heard in this courthouse. We have criminal cases, we have civil cases, and so we're just making a determination based on some kind of random method that we've all been taught or learned, and we're trying to make a determination that way. So if I start asking something and like the judge had mentioned, you feel uncomfortable, I don't anticipate that being the case, but if you do not feel comfortable, just say you'd rather stay at sidebar or talk in private, and we can do that. So I'll first go through my questionnaire list that I have here. And I know the judge addressed some of this, but just some things that I like to address as well. So does anybody know anybody that works for the prosecutor's office as an attorney or an advocate or any clerical personnel or anything like that? Oh, awesome. And the judge already asked if you know anybody here. We have Brennan Hyatt, and we actually have another officer that I intend to call, Noah Reinhardt. He's actually here as well. Both officers have never actually been through a jury trial, so they just want to see how this process worked. Because this is something that they don't teach you in really any part of law school and or being a police officer. Does anyone recognize either of their names? Both work for Cincinnati Police Department? Okay, awesome. So you'll find at some point that there's certain members of the jury that may be excused at some point. Try not to hold offense to that or hold myself and Ms. Underwood and feel like we're trying to judge you or do anything like that. It's just, like I said, I kind of joke, it's kind of like our made up way of trying to make a determination. We believe that you'd be the best juror in this case. Ultimately, we're both looking for fair and impartial jurors. There's these magic words that some of you have used in your questionnaire, so I don't know where you got that from. But that being said, those are what we're looking for. We want everybody to get a fair shot in this case. So I'm going to kind of talk about trial itself. Trial is not a contest of personality. As a personality of the attorneys, we ask that you do not consider, especially myself. I have 2 young children, so it's a miracle that I have clean clothes to begin with. So if I look a hot mess in the morning, that's most likely because I have 2.5 and a 11-month-old. So we're just trying to make it day to day here. But that being said, joking aside, the whole point of this is it's not about how we look or how we present, it's about the facts of the case. And so what I'm asking you, and I believe what Ms. Underwood will ask you, is we just want you to listen to the facts of the case and how they're presented and make a judgment solely on that, the facts alone. So I want to talk about the case itself. This incident occurred, and where did I put my sheet? This was on Wednesday. This incident occurred back on April 3rd, 2022, in the vicinity of 5043 Winnesty Avenue of Cincinnati, Ohio. Has anyone recognized this? I know the judge had mentioned that before. Yes. You recognize the location.
What's the juror's number?
That is short number 15.
I recognize it also.
Okay, and what juror are you? 21? And juror 17? Okay. Now,
You're referring to the location.
the location, yes.
So what we're gonna do first, I'm sorry, Ms. Mullin, to interrupt. Thank you for answering those questions, but the attorneys are gonna ask questions to only the person in the, seated in the box at this time, okay? But make sure that if you hear something like you just did that refers to you, that you make a note of it so that when you come to the box, we want you to reveal that information, okay? I'm sorry, Ms. Mullin.
No, I apologize, Your Honor. Now, that being said, that's the location of the offense. Just because you are aware of the location, that's not a problem at all. I am not personally aware, but some people are. Really what I'm trying to make a determination is if you recognize this case at all. Did you see the defendant pulled over at that time or anything like that? Has anyone in the box, do you recognize that or think about that at time? And it's April 3rd, 2022, a lot of things have happened. And that's fine. I don't think there would be any news article about this. I don't see a reason that there would have been, but that's all, just making sure that nobody has any preconceived notions or memory of this. So what we have here is we have two different charges. We have carrying a concealed weapon and an improper handling of a firearm in your vehicle. Does anyone have any problems with the nature of this offense regarding a firearm? Does anyone have any issues? Number 4, you're giving me a puzzled look.
I'm sorry.
Juror number 4, you gave me a puzzled look. Was that a confusing question?
No.
Okay. Do you have any issue on that? I'm just gonna pick on you real quick, just because I already started. Do you have any problems with the nature of the offense itself?
No. Description makes sense.
Okay, perfect. All right. And so I'm going to kind of pick on people like I did with juror number 4, and I'll refer to you as your numbers. But I'm going to do a little bit of that for my questioning, and then I'll go through the question and answers as well. So I'm going to just kind of, you're all an impossible target in this one, so we'll just kind of go through as we can. But juror number 1, this charge obviously involves a firearm. What are your feelings about guns or firearms?
I don't only, real from Kentucky, family members have.
Okay. I'm from Kentucky too, so you're there. And as far as firearms, do you believe it's okay to have a gun? Okay. And we'll go to number 2. I'm going to ask you the same thing. Do you have any feelings one way or another about firearms? Okay. And number 3, that's the same question. Okay. Now you say you don't love them and they're not legal. Or, I'm sorry, they are legal. You are, yes, obviously. But that being said, are you okay with the fact that some people are allowed to possess a firearm or own a firearm? Okay. And are you okay with upholding the law as it's written regarding firearms, as far as who's legally allowed to own it and how it's able to be transported? Okay. And number 4, how do you feel about firearms?
I'm okay with them.
Okay with them? Okay. And do you understand that there's proper ways in which you use and transport a firearm?
Yes.
Okay. And would you agree to uphold the law no matter what your personal feelings about individuals owning firearms? Do you agree to uphold the law as it's written regarding firearm usage?
Of course, yeah.
All right. Juror number 5. What are your feelings about firearms?
I think everybody should have them.
Okay.
Well, protect their family.
Okay. Now, you mentioned that you believe that everyone should have them.
Not everybody, but, you know. I think they're legal, there's nothing wrong with having them,
Okay.
but say that.
And given that, and you're absolutely entitled to however you feel about that, but my question for you is, would you agree with me that, or I guess, do you understand that there are proper ways in which you are to transport and use a firearm, given the way the law is written in the state of Ohio? Is that a yes? Okay, sorry, Miss Goldsmith is
Okay.
taking everything down by hand, so that's when I say yes, or sometimes I accidentally just move on because I recognize that you've nodded, but you know that she's writing everything down. So even though your feelings are that everyone, I get what you're saying, I do. Everyone that, you think that everyone should be able to as long as legally they're able to, is that fair to say?
Yes.
Yes, and would you agree to uphold the law as it's written regarding the having and transporting firearms? Is that yes? Do you think that you might have an issue with the way the law is written regarding firearm possession and or transportation? And it's okay to do. Again, like I said, it's not, we're just trying to make a determination if this is the right jury for you. Some people are adamantly against firearms of any kind and say that I don't believe that anyone should have one. I don't think that they should ever possess one. I don't think any person at all should have it. We don't want that type of person on the jury either, because then there's a bias one way or the other. So that's all we're trying to see. All right. Number 6. What are your feelings about firearms?
I own one.
Okay.
I had my concealed carry for years until just recently when you don't need it anymore.
And I want to talk about that now that you mentioned that. So this actually happened in April of 2022. So this was before the recent change in the law. Are you able to uphold the law as it was written at the time of this offense? Do you think that you could uphold the law as it was written at the time?
So
Okay. And as a concealed carry owner, as far as an owner, what kind of things did you have to do to get your permit?
I had to take a class. We didn't actually have to touch a gun, but you learned about how to transport it and how to carry it.
Okay. So you're aware, and just from your class, there are proper ways in which to transport it and carry it?
Yes.
Okay. And like you said, you had mentioned there has been a recent change as far as the conceal and carry. But again, we're going back to before this law had actually changed. Do you think that you can uphold the law as it was written at the time of the offense?
Yes.
All right. And juror number 7. What are your feelings about firearms?
I'm sorry, can you speak up?
There's rules that need to have adequate safety and educational hearing.
Okay. And so you would you understand that there are proper ways in which it should be transported and carried? Okay. All right. And do you believe that it's okay for anyone to have a gun?
I think there needs to be some exceptions, but overall, it's minimal.
I'm sorry, overall?
Yeah.
It's hard to hear, and you have to use your outside voice.
Agree that
Overall, yes.
Thank you. Juror number 8. And how do you feel about firearms?
As long as they're legal.
Okay. And what do you mean by that, as long as they're legal?
If there's a legal rights, so.
Okay. Did you hear that?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. You guys have just screamed it, please. They want to-
And the way that these courtrooms are designed, it does not carry sound at all. It's pretty terrible. Juror number 8, would you agree to uphold the law as it's written regarding the time that this incident occurred? At the time of the offense, the law was one way. I mentioned before, law has changed, but at the time, this is how it was written. Do you agree to uphold the law as it was written at the time of the offense? Okay. All right. Juror number 9. What are your feelings about firearms? It's not surprising I'm going to ask you.
I'm fine with firearms, I own one myself.
And as far as owning firearms, do you believe that everyone should own a firearm?
Maybe within reason, you know, you have to be confident.
And as far as owning the firearm, would you agree that there's a proper way to transport that firearm?
Yes.
Okay. Juror number 10, same thing. How do you feel about firearms?
I think it's okay to operate as long as it's done legally.
Okay. And why do you believe that there are laws in place regarding proper transport of firearms?
For the safety of the public.
There's no right or wrong answer. Again, just trying to feel everybody out. All right, and juror number 11. What are your feelings about firearms?
I think they're okay. They are illegal, and as long as they are illegal, however, I do think that there should be security checks in place to, for the public safety and whatnot. And therefore I don't believe, depending on your background, criminally, you may not be able to, at least that's my belief, to not have a firearm for that period.
And we're not dealing with that situation here necessarily. We're just doing as far as the way the law is written with carrying it and basically transport. So in that situation, do you understand that there are proper ways to use and transport a gun?
I do not know that, but I do understand that there are proper ways to transport.
And even if you don't own a firearm, which is okay, do you agree to uphold the law as it's written regarding the firearm possession and transportation?
Absolutely.
Okay. And juror number 12, how do you feel about firearms?
I'm okay with it, as long as it's legal and there's psychological control of it.
Okay. And again, as far as the transportation, you understand there are proper ways in which it's supposed to be transported as in the law?
Yes.
All right, so that's the big heavy hitter question, but we're gonna kind of keep going through. So the way that this case will work is the state, and I will start referring to myself as the state. I know that sounds kind of silly, but I represent the state of Ohio. I am acting as the state in going forward with these charges. So as the state alone holds the burden to prove this case today. The judge talked to you about beyond a reasonable doubt, and I'll talk about that a little bit more. But basically, how I go about doing that is through presenting evidence. And evidence can be either testimony or physical evidence, and there's even direct and circumstantial evidence. So we'll kind of talk about all of that as well. So First off, I'm just gonna ask a general, just kind of by a nod of heads, do you understand that the statements and testimony given by witnesses are considered evidence? Does everyone seem to understand that? Okay. And I'm seeing a general nodding yes from everybody. And also as far as evidence and testimony, there will be some physical evidence in this case that will be presented. There will be photos and probably the firearm itself will actually be brought in here. That being said, does anyone have an issue with the fact that that would be something that would be entered into evidence? Okay. Does anyone watch, actually before I go there, let me talk about direct and circumstantial evidence. So, a way that direct and circumstantial evidence can always go about is, so it's winter time, we'll say it's about January, you're heading to bed, you look out your window and you see that it's snowing. You go to sleep, you wake up the next morning and there's about 2 inches of snow on the ground. We would call that direct evidence. You saw that it was snowing, and then the next morning when you have 2 inches of snow on the ground, you can say that directly you saw it snowing, that's where the snow came from. I want to talk about circumstantial evidence a little bit. So circumstantial evidence would be, you go to bed, it's a clear night side, you live in Cincinnati, so you never know what the weather's going to be like in 5 minutes from now. Beautiful, nothing on your ground, but you wake up the next morning and there's 2 inches of snow. Now, you never saw it snow, but I think it's safe to say that it snowed overnight. Now, I bring that up because in some cases we have direct and circumstantial evidence. Direct, you saw it snowing. Circumstantial, you didn't see it snow, but there's 2 inches of snow. Those can be weighed the exact same in court. So you can use that circumstantial evidence just like you would direct evidence. Does anyone have a problem with direct versus circumstantial and holding them to the same level? Same shaking of heads, looks like everyone's good, okay. And I want to take that analogy a little bit and talk about reasonable doubt. Now, beyond a reasonable doubt, we're asking you to make a decision in this case that is something that you use in the most important affairs of your life. And I'll get into that in just a moment. But I like to bring up the snow analogy for beyond reasonable doubt, because beyond reasonable doubt is not for real all, because anything's possible in human affairs. Like I said, you didn't see it was snowing. There is a possibility that your neighbor took up ice sculpting in the middle of the night and left 2 inches of snow on the ground. But reason and common sense, and when you look at it, it's not likely that that would be the case. So when I'm asking for beyond reasonable doubt, I'm asking for a use of that same kind of thought process. So you're looking at everything and making a determination. And again, we're going to talk about things in the biggest part of your life, like harder decisions that you had to make. And I'm just going to we're going to go backwards here. Juror number 12. What's something that has been a big decision that you had to make in your life? You don't have to go into details, but kind of generic, within the last year. Moving back to Cincinnati? Okay, and that's a huge decision. That's kind of what level we're looking at. How about juror number 11? Is there anything in past years, a large decision that you had to make?
For me, I think it was moving in with my girlfriend.
Oh, that is a very big decision. And again, asking you the same, kind of apply that same situation here. How about juror number 10? What's a big decision you had to make last year?
Nothing in the last year, but yes, in the last couple of years, we've been meeting with my mother about something.
Making that determination. And I'm so sorry that happened, but I understand. That was a pretty hard and difficult decision that you had to go through. Again, that's what I'm asking you to hold the state to that level of consideration when looking at the facts. Does that seem to make sense to everybody? All right. We're looking for that kind of thought process when evaluating all the evidence that we have today. Okay, now I'm going to go into the evidence itself as far as CSI shows. who watches CSI or any courtroom dramas? Anyone here? Raise your hands, okay. You do understand that it's not like TV, in real world, okay? There's a lot of things that are done for entertainment purposes. There are definitely some differences. Depending on the case, sometimes it can be kind of like CSI. That's probably not like this case, not likely. Let's see, I think, juror number 4, I think I saw that you had raised your hand for watching CSI and court crime shows.
I stopped watching them.
You stopped watching.
It felt too scripted.
Okay, well, and that's good to know. But if I could ask you, as far as what kind of differences would you expect to see from that show versus what you might anticipate seeing in court?
Well, the show's got unrealistic with holographic imaging stuff that I know real court and coroners don't have in the court system.
Well, I appreciate that, because not everybody is in that same train of thought as yourself.
It didn't feel right watching that for certain.
And we have to understand, some of it's entertainment purposes. Obviously, this is not what we're doing today. We are very serious about these cases. There are serious charges. We're in a felony level of court. But would you agree that, it's not likely that there would be, fingerprints and DNA on everything? Is that fair?
That's fair.
Okay. And it's fair that there may be reasons why or why not certain evidence may or may not have been collected in a case.
Understandable.
Understandable? Okay. And I believe juror number 6, you also raised your hand regarding that. What kind of things why do you watch those shows, if you don't mind me asking? Okay, I'm not here to judge.
It's just entertaining.
Yeah, absolutely. And would you also agree that, what happens in the shows isn't always what happens in real life? Okay. Okay, let me see a little bit. I do want to talk about trial schedule, which I should have talked about a little bit more. The judge indicated we do anticipate that this case would be finished tomorrow. That being said, there is a possibility, depending on deliberation, that maybe it could roll into Wednesday, just depending on how long people, Wednesday or Thursday, if there's some kind of deliberation time. Is that a problem for anybody if this were to take part of the week? Okay. And I don't anticipate, based on our thought process, but is there any issues if anyone has to go beyond 4 o'clock? They usually try to kick us out as quickly as possible, so I just want to ask and make sure that there's no major issues with that. Is there anybody that's got something going on in their life that would prevent them from being able to give this case the time and attention that it deserves? Though it may not seem like it, as a state, myself and Ms. Underwood, and the entire court itself wants Mr. Anderson to have a fair trial as far as this goes. The state, as a state, has the burden. It's all my job to prove every bit of it, but I want everyone to be fair and impartial in starting out, so that's why I ask these types of questions. All right. I want to talk about police officers. That can be kind of a buzzword as far as these days. The state, as far as goes, my only witnesses are police officers. Does anyone have an issue with the fact that basically the only witnesses that will be presented are police officers in this case? Does anyone have a strong feeling one way or another? Okay. And I think I'll go into that a little bit more once I go through the questionnaires. I believe there's been a number of you, but Hugh in the jury box has served on a jury before. Okay, at least there's 3 of you. Okay. And juror number 1, I think you said that in your Oh, yes, in your questionnaire, it was a criminal case that you had served on, and without going into what verdict you found, were you able to come to a verdict and a decision as a group with your fellow jurors?
We were working toward that, but it went to a plea bargain, so.
Oh, okay. So it actually pled before you even had to do that, okay. That's not unheard of, that's happened before. Juror number 8, were on your case, and I apologize,
It was a
federal,
I'm sorry, I can't hear you. It was a federal.
federal case, international drug trafficking.
okay. And without going into what verdict you came to, were you able to come to a verdict with them? Okay. And how did you find that process? The process of being a juror?
Somewhat biased.
Somewhat biased? And why do you say that?
Hughes was a emergency room physician. And several of the jurors did not feel it was guilty based upon the amount of money his parents spent for his education.
Okay.
Had nothing to do with charges, but it was years.
Okay. And so that was not necessarily an enjoyable experience for you. Okay. Now, my question to you for this jury, do you think that you'd be able to put aside what had happened in that incident and basically kind of look at this situation as a new experience and something different?
Yes.
And do you agree to hold the state to the high standard of that the state must prove this case beyond a reasonable doubt? Do you agree to hold? Okay. And do you agree with me that as far as Mr. Ameson goes and Ms. Underwood, they do not have to present any evidence at all? Right? They can sit there and play games on their phone if they desire. And it's solely based on the evidence that I present. Do you agree to hold the state to that standard? And do you think that you could be fair and impartial on this case, even though you didn't have a great experience your last year?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. And thank you for that insight. I appreciate that. There's someone else. Okay, juror number 10. What kind of case?
Well, it got to this point where they were questioning and the judge reduced himself, so it didn't go.
Oh, okay. So you didn't even get to go actually to the fun part of it, as far as the others. So my question for you is, do you think that you would have, or do you think you enjoy being a juror in a case? Okay. And I say that, it sounds like I'm kind of making it like a fun type thing, but it's more than that. It just, we want people that actually want to be here and actually want to be a part of the process. Do you think that you can be fair and impartial on this case? Okay. All right, so going along that kind of line of questioning. Oh, yes.
Yeah, it was criminal,
Criminal?
but I was, an alternate jury, so I didn't.
Oh, so you had to sit there to the backup quarterback, as everyone calls it, yeah. So, there is a case, and some people might be a backup juror where, basically if someone were to be, fall ill, they sit there and listen to all the cases, they don't actually get to participate. So I understand that's hard, but did you enjoy the process outside of it?
It was, it was interesting.
And even though you didn't actually get to participate, you enjoyed the process itself while you watched the criminal process? Okay. All right. Is there anybody else that I missed in the box? I can pass them. So I've done a lot of talking about fair trial, and I'm going to ask basically, as far as a fair trial, making sure that this is a case for you. Do you agree, or do you all agree, just kind of by a nod, that that giving a defendant a fair trial means returning a not guilty verdict unless the evidence proves the defendant is guilty? Would you guys all agree with that? Looks like everybody is nodding, okay. And conversely, a fair trial means returning a guilty verdict if the evidence does prove that the defendant is guilty. Does everyone agree with that? As far as credibility of witnesses, like I had mentioned that I am mostly police officers. I'm gonna just kind of pick a little bit on some people because I picked on some and not everybody. Juror number 9, as far as police officers, do you believe that a police officer should be held to a higher standard or the same standard as an average, and I say average citizen, as a normal citizen that does not work as in the police or law enforcement?
Really have to do the job.
Right.
I think other than that, yeah, same standard.
And we're the same standard. So you would expect, a teacher to uphold their duties of their job just like you would a police officer or whatever. Okay. You would agree with me that police officers are human beings just like you and I, and they can make mistakes. And just because they make mistakes doesn't mean that they're necessarily a bad person, a good person, but yes, okay. Let's see here. Juror number 3. What are your thoughts and feelings on police officers?
Individuals.
Can't hear you, ma'am.
Sorry. I think individuals are trying to do their best. I think as a whole system, we have things to work on, but that doesn't prevent individuals from doing their job.
Okay. And do you believe that a police officer should be held to the same standard as anyone else that might take the stand?
I mean, yes, in both directions, if they get a compliment, that needs to be followed up with just as much as if they get it right.
Absolutely. And this is again a pretty straightforward case as far as how things kind of played out. But again, the state only has police officers as far as that goes. So that's just something that wanted to come up. And would you agree with me that police officers could make mistakes, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're a bad person or anything like that? Okay. And do you have any issues with the fact that the only witnesses that I would have are police officers? Okay. All right. Let me see here. As far as that goes, going into a little bit of credibility of witnesses, there may or may not be discrepancies in the testimony of the facts. But tomorrow, the trial that you'll see, there shouldn't be a whole lot of discrepancy as we have pretty much all of it on video. You'll see all of this pretty much on either motor vehicle camera or body camera. So that's one benefit, is a lot of this is on video. However, that being said, you are the sole judges of the facts. You can choose to believe or not believe whatever anyone says on the stand. And that's all we're asking for today, is for you to be the judges of the facts and judges of the facts, excuse me. But also, I want you to take into consideration that witnesses just like you or I may be nervous. It's kind of hard to get up here and take a note and talk in front of a person. So I want you to take that into consideration, but also remember that you guys are the judges of credibility, whether you believe that person is credible or not. Let's hear it. Juror number 2. What types of things do you do when you're judging the credibility of someone? What kind of things do you look at?
Their merit, how they behave, if I have anything to do with them prior, build up a relationship to see what they're doing externally.
Okay. And as far as someone that you don't know, how do you judge the credibility of someone that you maybe you've never met before?
Well, I guess it's hard unless there's facts to see, but
Okay.
if I know you're sure I wouldn't know anything. I wouldn't take less of you for any reason.
Okay. And how do you know, what are types of things that you look at when you're trying to determine if someone's telling the truth versus a lie?
Their behavior. If I've seen anything, if they act bizarre, or if I witness something, to go along with that.
Okay. And, kind of also along the credibility line, do you believe that people could be biased in, when they are testifying or, telling a story in a case? And where do you think that bias might come
The way that they grew up,
from? Okay.
their family history, their personal beliefs.
Those are really good, ways to determine. Now, do you think that even though you've never met a person before, do you think that you might be able to determine if there might be a bias of a person based on their background or relationship to a person?
I don't think so.
Okay. So what if there was a family member that was, testifying for another person? Do you believe there's a possibility that there might be a bias? Okay. And why do you say that?
Because they're related.
Okay.
And they would possibly feel one side for their family member.
Okay. Now, you would agree with me that there's a possibility that that would exist, but there is always that possibility that there could be some bias. Okay.
Well, we're gonna be taking a break soon. Do you, anticipate a little longer?
Could I have, 10 more minutes, just the 2:30, I guess we need, that'd be great, and then I'll finish up with it.
All right.
Okay. All right, so, go through here. I'm gonna just go through these questions. I have a questionnaire, we can kind of jump to that, and then I'll wrap it up. Juror number 1, I know these questionnaires were given to you before you got your video or whatever your call is going to show you, but you mentioned that you'd be a good juror as a blind citizen. What do you mean by that?
That was part of my duty as a citizen. I've done it before. Criminal trials. I felt intrigued.
I'm sorry, can you speak up?
I felt intrigued when I did the last criminal trial. I was the foreman of the committee. We moved in 3 days and then did a plea bargain.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. Awesome. And juror number 2. When asked if you'd be a good juror, you said that you sometimes, is it knowing who's right and wrong?
Yeah, like in my own personal life, I'm a bit indecisive, but I think with this, I would be fine.
Okay. All right. Juror number 3. Let's see here. When asked about being a good juror, you had mentioned about you think it's important to consider topics from multiple viewpoints. What do you mean by that?
Recognize that your background colors your viewpoint, and so to grow as a person.
I'm sorry, I
To-
can't hear you.
You have to recognize that your background colors your viewpoint, and so to grow as a person or to understand the situation, you have to be willing to consider other perspectives. And I think that that's interesting to be in life and important to be a well-rounded person.
Okay. And as far as this case goes, when talking about multiple viewpoints, most of this, again, will be on recorded video. Do you think the fact that it's all being recorded, would that affect your viewpoint in this case and listening to testimony and witnesses?
I mean, I don't think it contributes to what you will show you evidence.
Okay.
On these.
Alright. Thank you. And we are on juror number 4. you said one of the magic words are just fair and objective as far as being a good juror. Why do you believe that you'd be a good juror outside of being fair and objective?
Stuff in my past where, like I said, it's a strange past right through Woodward High School. I was kind of in the minority in 1983. So even the first boy I had a crush on, but it was a black girl. So I'm pretty odd. I think everybody is human. So I'm very fair and impartial on that kind of thing.
Okay. And again, and we had talked about this before, this is not a matter of how people are dressed, race, color, age, size, none of that. What I'm asking, and all of that anyone is asking, is that you uphold the law as it's written. Do you think that you could do that in this case?
Yes.
Okay.
Very much.
All right, thank you. And juror number 5. You had mentioned that you're able to understand different viewpoints. Now, my question for you is, we do have a video. Do you think that would affect the viewpoints that you see in this case? And why do you say that?
Even though it was a video, everything had different views and points of which it may have occurred, even though it's on video or whatnot. But understanding the reason why both sides are going to get on, regardless of the video or not.
Awesome. Do you think that you could be fair and impartial in this case?
Yes.
Okay. And we have juror number 6. You mentioned that you were unbiased. What makes you say that?
I think I just have a healthy amount of judgment. I have taken like the unconscious biases for work, so I'm aware of like what to be conscious about.
And do you think that you can be fair and impartial in this case? Alright. And juror number 7. As far as you mentioned that you were empathetic. Why do you think that would make you a good juror?
I think it's important to approach every situation with what's and not go with preconceived feeling or judgment regardless of what the events are.
Okay. And do you agree to hold the state to the standard of beyond reasonable doubt? All right, thank you. And juror number 8. Before you had mentioned that you had some family obligations that might deter you from being a good juror. Do you still feel that way after listening to everything? No. Okay.
Well, Brad asked me to get a backup, so I have to.
Okay. So that being said, do you think that will affect your ability to listen to the facts in this case? Do you think you'll be too preoccupied with listening? Okay, that's fair. And praise you for that because I 100% rely on my mom for babysitting, so I applaud you for that. Do you believe that you can be fair and impartial on this case? Yes. Okay. Juror number 9. You said the magic words of fair and impartial. What did you mean by that?
Just that I can listen to the facts and take them off evidence and see what's in there.
Okay. And would you like to be a juror on this case?
Sure.
Okay. And we're juror number 10. And you said the magic buzzword, impartial. What did you mean by that?
I like to listen to both sides and not have a preconceived notions.
And do you think that you'd like to be a juror on this case? And juror number 11. You said you could read people well. What do you mean by that?
I would have wrote a better answer to your previous one, but all good. I think just through past experiences and just through different gifts, I just feel like I have a strong sense of discernment in certain situations.
Okay. And do you think that you could be fair and impartial for this case?
Yes.
Okay. And do you agree to hold the state to the standard beyond reasonable doubt that I must prove this case and they don't have to do anything?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And juror number 12. Again, magic buzzword, impartial. What do you mean by that?
Oh, I listen to facts, I don't about tips or anything like that.
Okay.
A lot of people in my life, I consult myself
I kind of, I listen, I'm a very good listener, I should say.
Awesome. And do you think that you'd like to be a jury or juror on this case? All right. Your Honor, at this time, I believe that concludes our questions and pass the calls.
All right, thank you very much. Underwood, I want to give the juries a little bit of time to stretch, so it would be better if we just let them stretch and then come back and let's just do about 10 minutes, all right? All right, so let's recess the jury.
All rise.
You can do things. All right, we are in recess, 4 minutes.
during students. No.
Of course it is. So what you just do is,
None of this contains correspondence and that is taken out.
So if these are each of the days provided, and this is a combination of them.
Yes, so these it corresponds and then make changes to.
So this is the one we agreed to?
No, there's both of them still operating. It's transferred to someone. Yeah, so. Let me try this again. So basically, he has a hair by cycle. So that's the defense counsel as a shadow. And that's what the defense copy is. This is just showing what he did prove it. And Lincoln's copy is everything there is the original. That's what it is. So they're stipulating to more that they said.
Stop.
Next. Next. What was that? Next.
Does Ms. Howard know you guys came in this door?
She
advised
me,
Okay. I was gonna say, check in with her to make sure she's coming.
All rise for the jury. Cut your phone off, man. It'll be out just a second. I didn't realize she wasn't on the day for the I just want to know something that I need to hear. Is it nice? Nice. It's not gonna be good enough. I need that. I'm gonna work this out. I need to change.
Yeah.
How about everybody just have a seat, and I'll just have everybody stand up. All right.
All right, thank you. You may be seated. Ms. Smollett, are you done at this time?
Yes.
All right. Ms. Underwood?
Thank you, Madam. Good afternoon. Thank you so much for agreeing to do what you're doing. This is so important to us, not just to us on this side, but also us on this side. And I know there are plenty of excuses that people use not to be here, but we really do appreciate the fact that you are all here. The one thing I do want to mention, well, I want to tell you a little bit about myself because you all told us a lot about yourselves. I have been an attorney for 25 years. I'm married, I have 3 children of my own. My husband has 4 children, so I guess that means I have 7 children. I also have 2 grandchildren of my own, and my husband has 4 grandchildren, so now I have 6. So fun times. So, one thing that I do want to mention to all of you before we get started is after we get our jury selected, we won't be allowed to talk to you. The judge will tell us, you're not allowed to talk to you, you're not allowed to talk to us. But what you will know is that, Ms. Mullen and I will speak to each other in the hall. We say good morning. Doesn't mean that we're buddies or anything like that. It just means that we see each other most days. And unless you are a miserable human being, you are, polite and kind to the people that you see on a regular basis. So I don't want you to think that I'm being, untrue or unfair to my client. That's not it. It's just that we have to work here. This is where I work. And this is my profession. I love what I do. And I am not a miserable human being. So the first question I always ask is show of hands. If the judge said, okay, I want you to vote right now, is Cottrell guilty or not guilty? How many people don't know how they would vote because you haven't heard any evidence yet? Show of hands. Okay. And how many people would vote guilty because this nice young man in that police uniform wouldn't arrest somebody unless they had done something wrong? Oh, that's promising. And how many people would vote not guilty because that's what our system of justice means, that he's not guilty? Okay. All right. So the judge mentioned that when she gave her instructions at the very beginning. I always ask that question because sometimes when you don't come to this building, you don't really understand what presumption of innocence really means. It really means that he is not guilty today. He is not guilty until the state proves every element of every offense beyond a reasonable doubt. That is my tablet. I apologize. I don't know how to turn that notification off. I don't even know what it's notifying me of. Like the volume is turned down. I'm like at a loss. And my son, who's would be able to explain it, is from Terre Haute, Indiana. So I'm kind of lost with that. So I apologize for that. How many people drive? Yeah, everybody drives. Okay. So I guess I will start with juror number 1. You drive a car? Have you ever driven somebody around in the car with you? Has anybody ever left something in your car?
Just recently.
And tell us about that. What did they leave in your car?
She was in the back seat, she has a battery charger for the cell phone, and, I was driving. She got home, she called me and said, look in the back seat, there's nothing in the back seat, she put it in the seat, the driver, or the passenger, and I found it.
Did you know that she had the phone charger in your car? And did you notice that she put it in that pocket in your car? But after she told you it was there, you found it?
Sure.
And that, has that ever happened before other than that time?
That was,
Okay. Juror number 2, what about you? Has anybody ever left anything in your car?
All the time. I fill up the car full with my daughter, so her friends do stuff every time.
And is there any time that you don't notice something in the car?
Never knows.
And at what point do you figure out that there's something in the car that you didn't know was there before?
When my phone starts ringing.
Okay, so there's been like a whole cell phone in the
Yeah.
car. Okay, fair enough. Juror number 3, what about you?
I have a big story. I dropped off my daughter's friend yesterday, and 10 minutes down the road, I got a call from the mom that said she left her cell phone in the car.
Okay, and did you notice that there was a cell phone in the car?
Now, same day, in the pocket, so from the car to the car.
Now you're driving along, did you notice that she put her phone in your pocket? And that's not something that would be unusual for you, right? Does anybody think it's strange that somebody leaves something in the car? I mean, everybody thinks that's normal, right? Okay. Juror number 4, have you ever been accused of doing something that you didn't do?
Yes.
Can you tell us about that?
Wow. I don't have words in the personal stuff or not. Someone gossiped about me 5 or 6 years ago.
Okay, would you prefer if we talk about that, kind of in private?
I don't think they're in the case, but.
So I'm gonna explain to you guys kind of how this process works, right? So we're not really allowed to ask you questions directly related to this case. Like, so we're not allowed to say, what would you do if blah, 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 right? But what we can do is ask you questions like, do you drive? And has somebody ever left something in your car, right? So even though it's not like directly related to the case, it kind of is. So if you pay attention to the questions that I ask and that Ms. Mullen asked you, at the end of all the questioning, you should kind of figure out what the case is really about, even though we're not really allowed to tell. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So it's not like, I'm not asking you to reveal like a personal thing. It's just kind of, we're asking, number 1, to see if we can be fair and impartial. Those are the magic words, right? And also just to see what your personal experiences are. Because you'll take your personal experiences back to the jury room, and that's how you will discuss the facts of the case. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, so, ever been accused of doing something you hadn't done?
Yes.
And are you comfortable telling us about that?
It was, someone said someone had done something with a young woman, it wasn't true, and later on she had to tell people that's not what happened.
Okay.
And it was a jerk.
How did you feel about that?
I was quite annoyed and ticked off.
Annoyed, ticked off, outraged?
Borderline.
Okay. And so those are normal emotions?
Yes.
Okay, so you can see how somebody else would, if you see those emotions, that would be normal?
Yes.
Juror number 5, what about you? Have you ever been accused of doing something that you haven't done?
Yes, I'm saying.
Okay, can you tell us about that? I'll give you an easy one. Do you have brothers or sisters?
Yes, I do.
Okay, well then I know you've been accused of doing
Yes.
something. Right. You wanna tell us about that?
Dealing with my sister, just growing up, things not being done, and I always took the money for everything. But then it comes out that it was, that wasn't the case, so.
I bet you the jury would have been like helpful for you in some of those situations.
Yeah.
But how did it make you feel, like when somebody like accused you of doing something that you hadn't done?
You don't feel good about it, you know, it's just like, how would you don't have the trust that, our culture to have, to think about it, do that.
Okay. Fair enough. Juror number 6, what about you?
I also have siblings. I'm the youngest of 3 girls, so yeah.
And how did you feel when that kind of thing would happen to you?
In a way, I usually did it, but
And how did your parents kind of figure out and get to the bottom of the whole situation?
it's just my mom. But she usually just believes it to be true. So if I would have had a jury, it probably would have helped.
Okay. And juror number 7, what about you? Have you ever been accused of doing something that you haven't done?
My kids like to tell me that I told them that they could play video games for just hours and hours and watch all of the episodes in the series. That I really didn't do.
And how does it feel when they say things like that? When they kind of twist your words, or kind of twist the situation?
It makes you have both their eyes on you and be very slow to like, okay, I understand this, and making sure that they heard exactly what I said.
Makes sense. Okay, so, juror number 8. Have you ever heard of Went and Tears?
Yes.
And when you think about Went and Tears, what do you think? Or what have you heard?
So I don't know where it is.
Okay.
And normally I hear about it from news.
All right, perfect. So what have you heard from the news or the paper?
You have to talk really loud because there's a,
Nothing of that. But if you brought it today, that's the only we all got.
So would you say that what you heard on the news, let's see, I'm talking about, I don't really need to, but would you say that it was all good, was it bad, was it neither? What was your impression on that? So when you hear about things on the news, about Went and Tears, it was all bad?
Yes.
Okay. Anything jump out at you in particular?
Well, I think that's the way they wanted it presented.
Okay, that makes sense. What do you mean by that?
I'm sure there are good things that happen in this.
Right.
So it's on the news, all of the night.
Okay, makes sense. Juror number 9, have you ever heard of Went and Tears?
I have.
And what have you heard?
I haven't heard a lot. I delivered there probably 45%.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that was one of the locations.
Okay, and what was your impressions of Went and Tears?
It was a fine area. I guess, maybe socially, less economic.
Okay,
But other than that, it was fine.
okay. Have you heard anything on the news or anything like that about Went and Tears? Juror number 10, what about you? Have you ever heard of Went and Tears?
No.
Okay, fair enough. A lot of people have not, actually. Number 11, what about you?
Yes.
And what have you heard about Went and Tears?
Well, just the bad things that the news reports on. But I grew up in the area, and I know that I've been down in Witten Terrace, and I've had no issues. But nothing bad lately. But I don't pay attention to these. So it's all bad. So.
That's very true. Okay. And so juror number 11. Okay, I'm losing my, I was talking to you, juror number 11, right? I'm 12. You're 12, okay. Juror number 12, are you from Cincinnati or?
I am from Cincinnati, but I lived in LA for the last 5 years, so I just moved back.
Okay, but you've lived in Cincinnati long enough to know about the really strange weather?
Yes, yeah, I've been here for 32 years,
Okay, so
but I just moved for work.
okay, fair enough. So you've seen it snow in March and like rain in November.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So I'm gonna give you that same kind of circumstantial evidence example. So if it were, let's say it's March and we're in Cincinnati and you go outside, it's kind of cool outside, you know, it's cold and the ground is wet. How would you know, or how would you figure out whether it rained, or snowed, or the neighbor just decided to turn on the sprinklers a little early?
Look at the weather.
Look at the weather. So would you agree that there is no way to kind of know just because the ground is wet in Cincinnati that it rained or snowed specifically?
I'm not looking at the weather until, you know, if I can't see it, then I look around and check it out.
Right, so you didn't see like whatever it was that came out of the sky. Is that fair? You understand what I'm saying?
Not really, what you're trying to say.
Okay, so is there any way to know whether it rained or snowed if you live in Cincinnati and it's March? If you didn't see it?
Well, I mean, it can change, and, you know, it can be rain at night, I mean, like you said, it's different, you know, it can take a 30 minutes.
Right, absolutely. Juror number one, what about you?
Answer that question.
So let's say it's March. The ground is wet. You didn't see it rain, you didn't see it snow. So you don't know what happened. How would you figure out whether it rained or snowed?
Check the weather.
Okay, so would you just assume when you walk out the door, oh, it must rain? In Cincinnati in March. Right, so you wouldn't know whether it rained or snowed, it's not. Right? Have you ever seen it snow in March?
Yeah, sure.
Has anybody else ever seen it snow in March? Okay, somebody who actually mentioned that. Juror number 6. We also take notes so that we don't ask the same questions. So you mentioned that you had a class, you took a class at work. Was it something about implicit bias?
Unconscious bias.
Unconscious bias. Can you tell us all what that is, or what is unconscious bias?
Yeah, it's what we go out every day and think about strangers that we don't know, what information about them we take in without even realizing it.
Okay.
And what to be aware of so you don't do the wrong assumptions about people.
Okay. Can you give me an example?
If you look at the way somebody's dressed and think maybe, oh, they have a lot of money or they're poor, either way.
Okay. That's a very good example. Has anybody else heard of unconscious bias? Okay, I see some head nods. Juror number 11. What, would you agree with juror number 6?
Yes.
Anything that you would add?
Just keeping an open mind and not judging a book by its cover. You know, I know, to her example, some people who may have more money but don't dress like it.
Right.
And vice versa. So, just an open mind and not judging a book by its cover.
Okay. Now, juror number, let's see, juror number 3. Would you agree that if you hired an attorney, you would want the attorney to actually fight, right? And you would, and whatever that looked like. Does that make sense? So even if it means asking a bunch of strangers a lot of uncomfortable questions, you would want the person that you hired to ask uncomfortable questions. So can you agree though to not hold that against the trail if I'm asking you uncomfortable questions? Because that's kind of my job, right? Does that make sense? Juror number 4, what about you?
It's course you're gonna fight for your money. So it makes perfect sense.
Ms. Mullet suggested that I could just sit over here and play on my phone.
That doesn't make sense.
I agree. So I wasn't gonna ask juror number 3 the uncomfortable questions, but I'll ask juror number 5 the uncomfortable question. So you are the only black guy on jury box, right?
Yes,
And Trevor is also a young African American man.
yes.
Will you feel pressure from the other jurors? Like, you know, if everybody's looking at you, you make it onto the jury. Will you feel pressure to do one thing or another because you kind of, you know, you're a young African American man like Trevor is?
Oh, no, I make my own decisions.
Okay.
You know, I'm like, so I feel it right and not really reflect. That's how I usually, it doesn't like in general, I make my own path.
So you won't feel pressure if somebody says, well, you're only saying that because
Oh,
you're a black guy like he is.
no.
No, you'll feel comfortable kind of responding to that and kind of interacting about that?
Yes.
Okay. All right, fair enough. And juror number 7, what about you? Did you feel comfortable kind of interacting with the other people, kind of, even if you all don't agree? Okay, is anybody a Bengals fan here? Okay, that's some Bengals fan. Everybody, okay, somebody else, yeah. I need a strong Bengals fan, like one of those people who jump up and yell at the TV, kind of like my husband does. And we're like, okay, seriously. Anybody like that? Like you're jumping up and down. Okay, juror number 8. You're a strong Bengals fan, right? Okay, so let's say that you're watching the Bengals game. Okay, the Bengals game. They run out in their little white uniforms, and it's a white out. And all of the, I don't even know what they're called because I don't really live football for them. I just watch it. So the referees or the officials, let's say they all come running out onto the field and they're wearing Steelers jerseys. Do you think that can be fair and impartial? They're all wearing Steelers jerseys, like from the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Now remember, they can't do that.
Okay.
That would be a joke for us.
But how would you feel if that happened? Like if they just started the game?
Legitimate still is coming back, it would be okay.
Do you think they would call the game fairly? Or could they call the game fairly?
I don't think uniform has anything to do with that political case.
Okay, fair enough. Does everybody agree with that or does somebody disagree with that? Okay, juror number 6, you're smiling.
I mean, I would assume that they're a fan of the Steelers and think maybe they would be biased on repping that game.
Okay. Okay, so maybe that would be the best game for them to be the referee.
Yeah, maybe rep another game that does not involve the jersey you're wearing. I don't know, but yeah, that's a little iffy.
Okay, makes sense. So, uncomfortable question. Juror number 2, your husband is a police officer, and all of her witnesses are police officers. So, are you going to be fair to Cottrell, knowing that, you know?
Absolutely. My husband's profession is nowhere on my ability to determine right on.
Okay. So you wouldn't feel pressure, does he know where you are today? And if you go home and he's gonna be like, honey, why don't you do the right thing now? Bring one home for the home team. Okay. Juror number 9. Okay, let's say that you and your cousin, you're at the mall, and something happens and you get accused of something. And the only person who can really come to court for you is your cousin. Would you expect your cousin to come to court for you?
I don't think so.
And do you think that your cousin can testify and be believed, even though everybody knows that he's your cousin?
I don't think so.
And what would happen if your cousin didn't come to court for you?
I'd be disappointed.
Of course. Has anybody ever been in a situation where it was up to a family member to come forward and get you out of the situation, other than a parent? Because parents are going, those are the ride or dies anyway, right? Hopefully. No, nobody's ever been in this situation. Well, that's good. Okay, so juror number 10, what about you? Let's say you're at the mall. Only person with you is your sister. Do you have sisters? And your sister is the only person who can say, I was with my sister, she didn't do anything wrong. Do you think she would come to court for you and say that? Yes. Would you expect her to come to court and say that? Is it fair to assume that she would tell the truth, or what do you think that people would think about the fact that your sister is coming to testify on your behalf?
I think she would be truthful. People would think that.
Okay. Do you think that there's a situation where people would assume that maybe she's not being truthful just because she's your sister? And what do you think about that?
I don't agree.
Okay. Is there anybody who thinks that, who disagrees with juror number 9? That if it's a sibling or a relative, that they're gonna be biased and you can't believe them? Show of hands. Okay, you kind of look puzzled. Do you understand my question number 4?
Restate the question.
So, I'll ask you. Let's say you're at the mall. The only person with you is your brother, right? You don't have a brother. Okay, do you have a sister?
Yeah.
Okay, the only person at the mall with you is your sister, and she's not mad at you right now, right? And she is the only person who can come to court and say, my brother didn't do anything wrong. Number one, would you expect her to do that?
Yeah. Yes.
And do you think that it's fair that people would believe her?
Yes.
Do you think that there are some people who might automatically believe that she's biased because she's your sister?
There are some people who would act that way.
Okay. And are you one of those people?
No.
Okay.
I do think.
Okay. Do you think that a sibling can testify truthfully for another sibling?
Yes. Sorry if I seem nervous.
Oh, that's okay. I'm nervous too. I'm always nervous. It's just by virtue of what we're doing and just how important it is. So I know I'm nervous. Sometimes I shake my head. Sometimes I shake my foot. It's not, it's just kind of the nature of the beast. So, and of course, I'm just, trying to do my job, represent Cottrell, and make sure that, there's nobody sitting in the box who's going to say, you know what, I cannot waste 5 minutes. That's what I'm looking for. So that's based on the questions that I'm asking. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so juror number 1. Do you know anybody who, not juror number 1, let me just ask you all, just show of hands. Does anybody know somebody who has a criminal record or has been convicted of something? Okay, most people, okay, juror number 1, you know somebody, okay, good enough. So do you assume that the person that you know, would do something else just because they have a criminal conviction?
The situation that I'm thinking of happened previously, though, he confided in me, you know that. It didn't change what I thought about it.
Okay. What if you were accused of something tomorrow? What would you think?
We have to look at his character and the relationship that we may have. and wait.
Okay, so you wouldn't automatically assume one way or another, right? Do you think it's fair when people do that? Like, well, you know what, you've been in trouble before, you must be in trouble again. Okay, juror number 2, what about you?
I agree that the person that I'm would automatically assume or believe that.
Believe that they did it?
Correct.
Juror number 3, what about you?
You're asking, obviously, if they're in it again because they were having past.
Right,
No, I would not.
and why is that?
Well, because when my case, he served his time and he's now all of that. And so, I mean, the issue of being, and I think the fact that he wasn't really went through, it showed a lot of character and strength and it's hard.
Right, it is, I agree. Okay, so this is going pretty well, let's see. So there's also one other question, one final question that I asked, just because I wanted to ask it in a previous iteration of the jury. So number 12, taking into consideration that what I'm supposed to be doing is figuring out if anybody is going to be biased in this particular case. Is there something that I should be asking you, but I'm not asking you because I don't know you well enough?
I don't know, honestly. I don't know anybody who's convicted or anything like that. So
Okay.
I don't really know.
Okay, so
you would like just.
is there any other question that I should be asking you, but that I haven't asked you because I don't know you well enough?
My background.
Okay, well, tell me about your background.
Oh, I mean, my grade 11 years ago, like years ago.
Okay.
And, I work with, companies that is very fair and I'm being always being a good citizen, so.
Okay, now, is there anything in your background that would cause you not to be a good juror in this case?
No.
Okay. Do you want to be here?
Yes.
Okay. Juror number 11, is there anything that I should be asking you, but I'm not asking you because you didn't write it on this piece of paper, and I don't really know you about it? Not that you can think of. That's fair enough. Do you want to be here?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And now I have to count back this. Juror number 10. Is there something that I should be asking you, but I'm not asking you because you didn't write it on this piece of paper, and I don't really know you?
No,
Do you want to be here?
yes.
Juror number 9. Same question. Okay. Juror number 8.
Since you asked the young man behind me, since he was the only African American man, I don't know if on the form it asks you the sex of your children, but I'm a mother of 3 African American.
Okay, so taking that into consideration, and you know what, that's right, I should have asked you that, I should have asked everyone. Taking that into consideration, can you, if somebody says to you, juror number 8, they'll probably call you by name when you ask me back, juror number 8, you're only saying that because you got 3 sons and they look like him. What will you say?
I would answer based on my experience. And if my experience has been biased against my sons for being African American, I would say that.
Okay, do you think you can be fair and impartial on this particular case? And do you want to be here? Okay, so you deal with Brad Ashley, you would found a backup.
That's what he told me.
And juror number 7, what about you? Is there something that I should be asking you, but I'm not asking you because I don't know you well enough? Do you want to be here? Okay. And juror number 1, is there something that I should be asking you, but I'm not asking that question because I don't know you well enough?
In my prior experience, I was a hospital manager of Portugal County. And we had 50 people that reported to me. I work with HR very closely, and hiring and firing. We always weigh the facts. We had somebody that had some question. We couldn't get the answer from a hospital or physician. We really had to get our heads together and decide what we wanted. It was always a joint decision between the resources and myself.
And so you were comfortable kind of making those decisions?
Not at first, but almost 40 years in the business, so you pretty much know someone that quietly written something down or had poured somebody else's signature. That kind of runs up the ladder, but
Okay, fair enough. And so based on that experience, do you think that you would be a good juror in this case?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you want to be here?
Yes,
Juror number 2. What about you? Is there something that I should be asking you other than what I already asked you? And do you want to be here? Juror number 3?
I don't think that there's anything in the past, I can tell you I'm nervous about it. My profession as a nurse, and our job is to treat you regardless of what condition, situation brought you in. And so I think being in this position and having to now make a decision makes me nervous.
Right?
That's important, and I probably should be nervous.
Okay, that's true. But you know what? I'm gonna try to make you a little less nervous. We need you, right? We need the 12 of you, because obviously we can't agree on what's going on. Like, that's what plea bargains are. So when we can agree or at least come to a compromise, that's when you come to a plea bargain. But when we can't agree, we need literally 12 regular people, and I say regular people, who don't walk around here and listen to everything the way that we do. To actually listen to what everybody has to say, watch all of the videos, and then make a decision just kind of based on whatever your experiences are. And that's actually what that's what it means. You are the trier of facts. So you listen to everything that comes from the witness stand, you see all the evidence, and you guys make a decision. And that's actually what we're asking you to do. So nothing rocket science, nothing like that. Just basically, it'll be straightforward. That's all. Are you comfortable with that, knowing that? And do you want to be here? Okay. Juror number 4. Is there anything that I should be asking you, but I haven't asked you because I don't know you well enough?
Not that I can do this.
And do you want to be here?
Yes.
And juror number 5, is there something that I should be asking you, but I haven't asked you because I don't know you well enough? And do you want to be here? And juror number 6, is there something that I should be asking you, but I have not asked you because I don't know you well enough?
I mean, I wrote everything down that I think you should know. Maybe the only thing, because you asked another juror, is my father is a police officer.
Okay.
But I also have family that's in prison, so I think it evens out. I don't think it would affect deciding on someone's freedom.
That's what I've been asking because I thought it was
Okay,
So, okay, so that was a question that that was actually what I was looking for, like something I maybe should have asked you. But that's actually what I did. I read your form and I was like, what are the kind of promises and stuff like that? So your father's not going to be able to come. Is he retired? Or?
He retired a year ago from the city of Cincinnati.
Okay, so he's not going to come to your house tonight and say, hey, bring home one for the home team.
Honestly, I don't even think he knows my last name. He probably doesn't know I'm here. So it's fine.
Okay, and do you want to be here?
Yep.
Okay, you have just a moment. Sure. I'll pass it across.
All right, thank you very much. All right, can I see council sidebar here? Yes. All right, at this time, the court would like to thank and excuse juror number 2 and juror number 3. Thank you very much. If you wouldn't mind going up to the jury commissioner's office on the 4th floor on your way out, so you can turn in your information, all right? And jurors number 13 and 14, if you wouldn't mind, please coming in to the jury box. Yes. 13 and 14. All right, so let's just, if you can make room for juror 13 to sit in seat number 2. And juror 14 to sit in seat number 3. And then jurors 2 and 3, thank you very much. And I think that yours is right here.
That's perfect. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. All right, and then, if I can see the lawyers just one brief moment. Juror number 15. No, wait, is it 15? Yes, 15, all right. Juror 15, thank you. You may be excused for the reasons that you indicated to the court.
Okay, thank you, Judge. Have a good day.
Thank you. All right, Ms. Smollett, you may proceed.
Juror 13 and 14, you guys are on the hot seat, so we're gonna have to go through a few questions for you. Juror 13, was there anything that I had talked about that you had heard that you feel that it's necessary to tell me at this point? No? Okay. So what are your thoughts on firearms?
They're purchased legally, and they're kept safe, and people take training.
Okay. And do you agree to uphold the law as it's written by the state of Ohio in this case?
Yes.
Okay. Regardless of whatever personal feelings you might have?
Yes.
Okay. Now, when asked if you'd be a good juror, there was some concern with the work schedule. Is that still a concern for you?
They sent me a message that they can fill in for me tomorrow.
Okay. Now, if this were to go into Wednesday, and I don't think that testimony would, but in case you are still deliberating, would that be a problem?
No, I don't work on Wednesday.
Okay. So that's no longer a concern for you? Okay. Let's see here. When asked about being a possible victim of a crime, you had an unfortunate situation, it appears.
I did.
And given that situation, how do you feel, I guess, was police, law enforcement involved?
In the assault, yes.
Okay. And were they ever able to catch the person that did that to you?
Yes.
And was there a trial at all?
No, but it was a situation that people, can I explain?
Oh, sure, absolutely. If you're comfortable, yes.
My son and I were in Nassau, and we were walking down the street, and this man came out from like a scoop, and my son said, "Watch it, Mom," and he pulled my purse, and I turned around and the mother started punching, and they screamed, and he pulled my purse and ran off. Well, down there, we are, as travelers, are the money people that have money, and so, like, the police heard it and started running after them, and the lady hit him with a car, all this situation, but he was apprehended, and he was taken down to the police station, and he said, "Is this the man? Is this your purse? Is this everything?" So that's all we had to do then.
Okay.
So I was on a cruise.
I was gonna say, that's, so that's from the Bahamas?
Yes.
So it wasn't in a situation,
That was,
okay. Sorry, I'm gonna take this off a little bit. Talk a little clearer. But I did see that you had mentioned when talking about police officers that you highly supported police officers. What did you mean by that?
well, I have friends who are police officers, and I just always feel like, if you're running away from the law, that there is something that is happening, and I just support what they do.
Okay. Now, in this situation, I don't think that we're gonna have a situation where you're just running through the law. That being said, because of your beliefs, do you believe that a police officer is held to a higher standard than an average citizen? Okay. Let's see. Take you out of the hot seat for a moment. Juror number 14. Is there anything that was mentioned before that you feel is necessary to bring up out of the question that we had in the past?
No.
No? Okay. When you said that your feelings are neutral about police officers, what do you mean by that?
I believe that, officers did a rough job, but I also feel that, just in everything else, that you have to take it, anything happens on a case-by-case basis.
Okay. And then you mentioned when asked if you could be a good juror, you said you could be objective. You've actually served on a jury before?
Yes.
And that was in a civil case?
Yes.
Okay, so, you're aware as far as the civil level of, in which they have to prove their evidence level is not beyond reasonable doubt, so more likely than not preponderance of the evidence. As far as the evidentiary level, you're aware that it's different. So I have, as the state has more burden than in a civil case.
Yes.
Okay, and, how was that experience, being on that jury?
It was so long ago, and like you said, it was a civil law, it's completely different than what we're involved with here.
Yeah. Did you enjoy that experience?
It was fine.
Were you able to come to a decision in that case?
Yes.
And I don't want to go into the details about the decision, but what kinds of things did you do in coming to a decision on that case?
Deliberation, everybody had a chance to say what they wanted to say. Nobody made a decision until we heard everybody talk. When there was questions, we asked questions.
So it was a pretty pleasant experience, don't you? Everyone was relatively amicable and there was a lot of. Okay. Ms. Everyone brought up a point about things being left in your car. And I want to talk about that for a moment. Have you had a situation like that where somebody's left something in your vehicle?
Sure.
Without you knowing?
Yes.
Okay. And tell me what that item was.
An umbrella.
Umbrella? So something pretty benign, it just something small. Okay. Would you agree or disagree with me that that umbrella, even though it was left behind, it was in your car, right?
Yes.
And that you were in control of that umbrella as far as where it was going, what it was doing?
Yes.
And let's see. I want to talk about driving also. As far as driving, the train left the station and I wasn't on it. So let me back up here a minute. Firearms. Let me talk about firearms. What are your feelings about firearms?
I don't know one, but I can remember the two.
Okay. And do you have an issue with people owning firearms?
I don't know which one.
Okay. Do you have any issues with upholding the law as it's written regarding firearms? Okay. And juror number 13, I'm going to back to you. And speaking about items left in the car, has that ever happened to you? Okay. And if you can, off the top of your head, what's the last name?
I have 5 grandkids.
Okay.
Is that funny?
Yes.
Let's see, there's stuffed animals, there's gun chargers, just, let's see, swimming, gear, just about anything that 5 grandchildren would be.
Okay. And when those things are left in the car, who is, I guess in this situation, who is responsible for what's in that car once it's left in your car? In your opinion?
I guess I'm responsible, but they were the responsible.
For leaving it, absolutely, yeah, absolutely.
I'm usually the one that finds it in the car.
And you would agree with me that you're the one that would then be in control of that? Okay. All right. Your Honor, I have just one moment.
Yes.
Your Honor, I don't believe I have any further questions. Actually, wait, I just, wait one moment. Juror number 13, do you believe that you could be fair and impartial in this case? Okay, and do you want to be a juror on this case possibly? Okay. Same question for you, juror number 14.
Yes and yes.
All right. Okay, I have no further questions.
All right, thank you very much. Ms. Underwood, I intend to let the jury go in about 10 minutes, but I don't want to limit your questioning. Would this be a better time to let them go, or do you want to go ahead and forward ask your questions now?
I don't think that I'll take long.
Okay, go ahead, just go ahead.
So juror number 13, is there anything that I asked this morning or this afternoon, earlier this afternoon, that kind of jumped out at you that you wanted to kind of talk about or comment about? Have you ever heard of Winton Terrace?
Just like a little bit maybe on the news or
On
this road.
Right, and so just what you heard on the news. Okay, and so you heard me kind of asking people about people leaving items in your car. And you have grandchildren, so I know that there are items left in your car all the time. Has anything ever slid under the seat or been put in a place in the car and you didn't know it was there?
Yeah, like their water bottles or things from, like that. Is that what you mean?
Yes.
Yes.
So there are those things that you don't know are there, right? Is that the same as when you see the umbrella left on the seat? Okay, let me ask you something. So if you see your grandchild leaves an umbrella on the seat, are you gonna say, hey, you left your umbrella, you left your umbrella?
Yes.
Or will you call them and take it back or whatever it is?
Yes.
What about the things that you don't see?
I mean, I wouldn't see it until I was cleaning the car out or something like that. Or they call me and say, Grandma, look under the seat, I think I left my water bottle under the seat. If we go to king side, then I found them and under the seat. And then forget
Okay, so that's kind of a normal thing.
it. Yeah.
Now, the judge will give you some instructions. She'll give you all instructions like, this is what these definitions mean. And are you comfortable kind of looking at all of these videos, and kind of listening to all of the testimony to determine, whether these facts fit what the judge gives you instructions about?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Juror number 14, same question. Has somebody ever left something in your car and you saw that they left it in your car?
Yes.
And what did you do when you saw that they left it in your car?
I let them know that I had.
Okay, now what about those times when somebody left something in your car, but you didn't know it was there? If you don't know it's there, do you just go, kind of searching your car for stuff, just in case somebody leaves
No,
things?
there's been things that I put in my car and somehow it slipped down the side and I didn't know it was there. So, yeah.
Okay, so there are things that have been in your car, and you had no idea what they were.
Yes.
And same kind of thing, so, we're asking you questions, obviously. And now we both kind of hyper-focused on this driving a car, leaving something in the car issue, right? So there must be something around that. You think that you can listen, the judge will give you like pages of instructions, right? You'll hear the testimony, you'll see the videos. Are you comfortable making a decision knowing that we don't agree on what happened that day? Are you comfortable listening to everything and making a decision based on that? Okay. Juror number 13, is there something that I should be asking you, but I haven't asked you because I don't know you well enough? juror number 14, so same, no? Okay. I was curious about something. What is TOPS? What is that? Oh, pounds, okay, I was like, it just looked like POONDS. I was like, what is a plume? Okay. Oh, okay. Thank you. I'll pass for guys.
All right, thank you very much. Can I see council for just a moment?
Excuse me.
Yes. All right, I'm so sorry about that. Yes, anyone else need to use the restroom? We can take a quick break. All right. We're all done for today. Are you sure you have time? All right. Ms. Small, you have time?
Sure.
You both have time, right?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. All right, at this time, the court would like to thank and excuse juror number 4 and juror number 13. Wouldn't mind stopping by the sign committee, the jury commissioner on the way out, okay? Yes, ma'am. Thank you. You want this door or you want that door? You want.
Okay.
Thank you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to recess for today. We will not be able to conclude jury selection. I think we're almost there, but we're not quite there. And so everyone who is still here has to come back tomorrow. So juror number 16, I think that's the young lady who went to the restroom, and juror number 17 will now come to the box. So juror 17 will now be in seat 4 tomorrow, well, today, you can go ahead and come here, and then juror number 16 will be in box number 2. Ladies and gentlemen, you have not heard any evidence, but I still need to admonish you not to speculate, do any type of research on your own, watching television or talk amongst yourself, trying to speculate what this case is about and what the evidence would be about. We will begin promptly at 10 a.m. tomorrow. So when you get to the jury commission office, we will bring you downstairs in about 5 minutes till 10. And I don't care what I have on my docket, it's getting pushed because this is gonna start at 10 a.m. in the morning. And then we will finish up with jury selection and proceed on with the case. And so I would imagine that you need to be back upstairs at 9:30, by 9:30, all right? You're gonna be very quick, you're not gonna sit around tomorrow, you're gonna be moving pretty quickly. And so I just wanna thank you so much for your patience today, and we will be in recess until tomorrow at 10 a.m. Please report to the jury commission on the way out, and then we'll see you tomorrow. Thank you. And if you wanna go out this door, you can go out this door, if you wanna go out that door, go out that door. Move that chair out the way.
Oh.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. So it's upstairs on the floor. Thank you. Hey. So juror 16, you will now be in seat 2 tomorrow.
Okay, and is it here at 9:30?
Be here at 9:30, report upstairs in the jury commissioner's office at 9:30, and we'll bring you down at 9:55, and we will start at 10 o'clock. Thank you. All right, we're in recess.
I'm gonna go prison today.
public hearing.
The NBR should stop. Really, I don't know. I don't know exactly what to stop it. So,
No, because I had forgot the 15 students. So I think. I'll check against you.
This, is how we concurs, they just brought it to me today. This has the serial number, and then matches the serial number. We want them to, so this, tonight.